Welcome back to Lost Legacies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
We're going to get into our top 10 films this episode, but we're probably going to do it as a two-parter. We're probably going to do the first half this time and the second half next time.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, just to keep everyone tuning in. I know the anticipation is going to be through the roof. There are some things I did want to bring up, and I forgot all of it because I didn't write it down.
This is why you got to write it down.
Yeah, I know. I will say this, though. Maybe a week ago, I went to Half Price Books, and when I walked in, they had a table of like the Funko Pops for sale. I hadn't bought any in like years.
Decades.
But I did buy one. It was Batman like dressed as Ebenezer Scrooge. Apparently, there's like a Christmas line from the DC Comics. I'm like, okay. Oh, that's so cool. That's not anyway. The point of my story is like I keep looking. But also speaking of Christmas, I go to like the performing arts section, and I'm looking at like the film books, and there's this beautiful coffee table book of It's a Wonderful Life, just like behind the scenes and it's all the pictures, and it's really cool. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm about to put it back, but then I see on the inside, it's hardcover. On the inside of the hardcover, there's something written on it, and it's years, and I wasn't paying attention. I don't know if it said 2006 or 2016, or could have said 1996. I don't know, but there was a 6 in it. It could have been 1936.
Whoa.
I don't even know when that movie came out.
1906.
1906, or just 6.
Wow.
But anyway, there's this year in it, and there's like 4 names. Like Kathy, Helen, Karen, something like that. And next to Karen, there's an asterisk, and it says Karen's first time. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Well, then the next year, I don't know, 2017 or whatever, it's the same women's names and a few more. And there's little notes. And it's like, Catherine would not stop eating. Karen drank so much wine, ! And then right next to it is the next year with more women, some of the same, some are gone, and it's like so and so cried this time, Karen didn't. This was Karen's 3rd time, and she hasn't cried yet. I think we'll only do this one more. And then sure enough, there was the 4th, and like there's little notes. And I just thought that was cool.
That's cute.
So I'm assuming every Christmas these women would get together, eat and drink, and watch It's a Wonderful Life, and everyone except for Karen would cry. And I don't know. There's something kind of cool about that. Like, I wish I was there. In a way, I kind of feel like I was, because I got to experience that in the book. Yeah, I don't know. It was very interesting. So I was kind of wondering, like, what else could you do that with? Like, what other film? I think this one works in particular because it's a Christmas film. So you're like, okay, we'll only watch this once a year, but it's something we want to introduce to people, like Karen.
Yeah.
You know? So what, like, I don't know, what would you pick?
Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
Every year, just do a marathon, and there you go. We're gonna chart it, and we're gonna see who cries when, who drinks too much, who gets too into it, who says the fabled. Did you know at this point, Viggo Mortensen broke his toes when he kicked that helmet?
Exactly.
It's like everyone but Karen.
We're gonna have to find someone who's never watched them before. It's time to get on Craigslist.
Oh, geez. I was gonna say we got a bunch of little cousins, and I have a few nephews. I think.
Yeah, but you can't drink with them.
Oh, is that part of it? Is that a component of?
Well, this? I don't think so. But I mean, that was just some of the notes. They're like, Karen would not stop drinking wine.
Oh, like we'll just say like, oh, our nephew just wouldn't stop picking his nose.
I don't know. I just think that's something cool. Like, I don't know what movie I would pick. Like, well, there is the kind of tradition in our house ever since we were kids, we would always watch The Snowman.
Oh yeah.
By who wrote that one? I don't remember.
I don't know.
But it was based off a book, and then like BBC made it like a little animated special, and it's narrated by the actual author. And depending on the version you watch, he's actually in the beginning. He's walking through the snow.
There's also a version where David Bowie does the intro.
Yeah, he was such a fan. Like they refilmed it where he does the intro, but that's not, you know, I as much as I love David Bowie, I got to go with the original because it's the author himself, you know.
Raymond Briggs.
Raymond Briggs, that's his name.
Yeah.
I was like, Ray Bradbury. It was something with an RB. RB. Arby's.
They have the meats. Somebody was posting, because you know everybody's posting about Mission Impossible right now. They posted up a picture of like their plate at Arby's, and they were like, Ethan, we have the meats.
Wow. Well, I was talking to Dad today because we went to go get food for Mom, and we went to the taqueria and we got some caldo, and the whole conversation was in Spanish, which I'm not very good at. And I was like, so I was asking Dad, what does this mean? What does this mean? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm not even going to say it because I can't roll my R's and I'm going to embarrass myself. But essentially it was translating to beef. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, I never really thought about that, like the Spanish word for beef. And so I said, is that like literally what it means, or is it like a phrase? Like, do you also like, could you also call livestock that? And he's like, no, not really. It's like literally beef. I was like, okay, so you can't say instead of like, I'm gonna go feed the animals, like I'm gonna go feed the beef. He's like, no. And I was like, feed the beef.
Oh no.
That's my new mantra.
Mantra?
I don't know what that means. Feed the beef, Matt. Get it done.
What?
I don't know, Sam.
What's happening?
The feeling it evokes in me is all that matters.
Oh my God.
I don't care who hears it.
We need the studios to get back to the negotiating table. I think this strike has fried my brother's brain.
I'm going crazy.
We can't talk about Lost. He can't talk about Lost, and yeah,
I'm lost without Lost.
He's making up weird life mantras with beef in it. Oh boy,
The beef. Yeah.
That's gonna be our first shirt.
Yeah, you see, now you're laughing. Now you're laughing, right? That's the whole point. The beef. Arby's.
No. Oh God. Wow. Yeah. Arby's, if we know you're listening, if you need a new slogan for your restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Arby's. It's people.
Wow.
Matt got fired from their PR team fast.
Shut down immediately. They paid Ving Rhames whatever he wanted to come back.
Oh man.
Oh God.
Is he the voice?
Yeah.
So that's why they did it with Mission Impossible.
Yeah, that's why they do. Yeah. That's cool. That's why it's the meme. Like, Ethan, we have the beef.
Wow.
We have the meats. Sorry, the meats, not the beef.
Ethan, feed the beef.
No.
Oh God.
Oh geez.
How'd this podcast go so wrong so fast?
God.
So anyway, I don't know how we started talking about that. But
yeah, I don't know either.
We started talking about Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life. Because we were talking about Snowman, and then eventually we got the DVD. It was a 2-pack, and it was kind of like a pseudo sequel to the Snowman. It was what was it called?
I don't know, something Father Christmas.
Oh, I think it's just called Father Christmas.
Is it?
But the whole, and these are what, like 15-20 minute cartoons, right?
Yeah.
It's like a little short film. And then in Father Christmas, it's basically what he does during the year. So after Christmas, he goes on this like month-long journey across the world traveling. And it's so cool. Like he builds like a little camper and you see him go to Vegas and all this stuff. It's fun. It's cute. But he does end up at the North Pole with the snowman and the kids. So it's kind of like maybe a sequel or
an in-between
in between, or kind of like 300 franchise where both movies kind of happen like at the same time. Yeah. So I don't know, that's kind of like a tradition for us. And there's also a book, so that would be cool to be like, oh, and this year so and so watched this, and yeah, it's kind of weird to start it now because we've already seen it for so long. So
that's true. True.
I don't know. I guess you could do it with classics as well. Like Casablanca is like the big one. So many people haven't seen it, and there's a lot of opinions on it for people who are watching it, because I think it's been so overhyped. When you watch it, you either love it or you don't.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people who are like, it was all right. It's like, oh crap,
lost another one. That's gonna be my journal. My journal is like, so and so didn't like Casablanca.
You don't know cinema. I mean, I get it, but
yeah,
they're still wrong. Art's subjective, but they're wrong. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was really cool to find that It's a Wonderful Life book. I didn't buy it. I bought the Funko Pop instead. But yeah, I wanted to share that with you. I thought that was a pretty cool little experience.
Yeah, I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah. So now I'm just kind of thinking about like these film books differently, the coffee table books, because I'm like, oh man, that'd be really cool. Like to watch movies with friends and stuff and just be like, oh, this is this year so-and-so's blah, blah, blah. Maybe we could do that with some of the films on our list.
Ooh, maybe.
So listeners, our boss, Sam and I have worked at a bookstore for several years, and our boss, along with her husband and her best friend, they watch each other's favorite films. So they all have like a top 10 list, and eventually they go through like, I don't know, maybe it's once a month or once every couple of months. And she always comes in complaining. She's like, Matt, I had to sit through The Great Escape. What the hell was that? I'm like, it's a phenomenal movie. And she's like, it's not a great escape at all. It's the exact opposite. I was like, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah. I remember when she
false
came
advertisement.
In,
yeah,
she was talking about it. Oh, but she was very into Charles Bronson and his friend. They're like, and they have like a gay thing going on. I don't know, but like
they have the most romantic ending. They just paddle away on their little boat. I was like, yeah.
I was like, yeah, they do. Love wins, Elizabeth.
Yeah, especially during World War II. I sent you I sent you and Dad a clip on Instagram, and it was this guy, and it said, "Guys only want one thing." And this guy was talking. He's like, "Listen, ladies, if you really want to make your guy feel good, or your brother, or your dad, it's simple. All you have to say is, 'Hey, dude,' or 'Hey, bro, you know what? I think you would have done really good in World War II.'" And he's like, and then to top it off, you could even say, "Especially in Normandy." He's like, ladies, that's all guys want to hear. They want to know that if given the chance, they could have taken out some Nazis.
Wow. Wow.
I was like, this is brilliant. I was like, I kind of agree. Like, that's all we got to hear, You would have done really good in World War II.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, so dumb.
It's the serotonin hit that I'm looking for.
I'm kin enough, okay?
I am Knuff.
I can even say it right, like I always say Ken enough. I'm Ken enough, which I think is funnier because it doesn't make sense.
Now that that's out of the way, talk about an intro.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Top 10 movies. Okay, we're in a little bit of a situation, guys, because Sam has numbered his top 10 films. I have not.
Because I'm not a sociopath like you.
I can't like I could pick probably my top two
I
after
need
that.
I need things to fit into a list. I'm not one of these wishy-washy people who like, oh, I don't know, I love all of these movies. No, these movies have bloodied and battled it out with all the other movies that I love. And these are the ones that came out on top. And by God, I'm gonna give them a ranking.
All right. I'm trying to.
You can still do it your way.
No, it wouldn't make sense, and like I don't know. So I'm just roughly going through these right here. I'm like, okay. Why don't you begin? Do you have any what's it called? Honorable mentions.
Oh crap. Huh. Interesting. See, dang it. I should have worked on this more. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna pull this up. Well, see, that's the thing. Like, it took me a while to come up with the list, and then it took me so long to just be like, oh yeah, nope, these are the numbers. Yep, this is what we got. All right. I didn't even think about an honorable mention. Let me just go to my letterbox.
Oh, see, that's smart to do it in Letterboxd.
Because I do. So I made this one a while back. I'm gonna tell you the ones that aren't on my list.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We got Pan's Labyrinth.
That is a good one.
Tigers Are Not Afraid. Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
The Last Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
My Neighbor Totoro. Nice. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh.
And Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Oh, good. That's good. Mm-hmm. I have to say Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein is not on my top 10.
Okay.
But it still to this day is my favorite, what I consider horror movie. I count it. And guys, we've talked about that before, I think in our Halloween episodes.
Every Halloween we talk about it.
Yeah, because I don't really watch scary movies. So, but even then, just from a cinephile perspective, even if I did like horror movies, I think I would still consider that film a horror movie, especially for the time. And I will die fighting that stance.
I like it. Mm-hmm. I like that stance.
Okay, so I only have. I guess I have two honorable mentions.
Okay.
One would be the one I mentioned a few weeks ago, Starship Troopers. I was so close to sticking it on my top 10 list because I just recently rewatched it, and I'm like, you know what, man? I love this film. I love how quotable it is, how I'm still quoting it like years later. What is that movie, like 20 years old at this point? At least.
Yeah.
That was high school or middle school? I don't remember.
That was late 90s?
Maybe it's more. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
The music, it's amazing. Just absolutely love that movie. So I was really, really considering putting it on my top 10, but I'm like, okay, it's honorable mention. Second honorable mention, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm.
You son of a bitch.
It almost made my top 10 list, dude.
You son of a...
Almost. It was so close. Especially because it's set in the animated series, which we all grew up with. It's a continuation. It's probably the most Batman story we've got on film. And keep in mind, this is like the only Batman animated movie outside of the Lego movie to hit the theaters, I believe.
It wasn't supposed to. It was initially just going to be straight to VHS, but then they decided to up the budget a little bit and throw it into the theaters. In December, wasn't it? It was like December 92 or something.
Yeah.
No,
92.
it was December. I think wasn't it December 91?
Well, that's when you were born.
No. It was it was it was December 92
Okay.
because the show premiered earlier that year.
Oh yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
That was the thing, because 92 was a big year for Batman because Batman Returns came out in like the summer. The animated series came out sometime in the fall, and then the movie Mask of the Phantasm came out in December.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. An honorable mention. How dare you?
Sorry,
How
dude.
dare you?
Sorry. I'm kind of don't answer this question, but well, it's not a question. Don't answer this, but I'm really curious if that movie made it onto your list.
We'll just have to find out.
We're just gonna have to find out. So I figured this is what we'll do. We'll start 10, and then we'll just take turns. 9, 8. So, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'll go first.
Okay, cool.
I'll set the tone. This might surprise you.
Oh.
Now, this movie that I'm about to talk about isn't my number 10, but I think it's a key linchpin in my evolution into a horror fan. So I saw The Exorcist 3 Legion. Fantastic movie, phenomenal movie. I was so terrified. I was so terrified of this movie, but that was the horror movie that got me into horror movies. Because at that point, like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, like I've grown up with that, but for like a more contemporary horror, for something that's like truly scary, to me at least, saw that movie. It's phenomenal. It's great. In my opinion, it's the best Exorcist. So that sort of opened the door to me that like, oh, horror movies can be about different things. It's not just about the scares. It's not just about a slasher, and all this stuff. Like we can talk about these very complex things. And, so I'm like, okay, cool. Like just kind of delving in, going into stuff. And then I realized that at a certain point, there are also horror movies that can just be really weird, and they can be musicals. So my number 10 is The Phantom of the Paradise.
Okay, wait a minute. So Exorcist 3 was... Oh, that's what you're saying. That's not the list. That's not on the list.
Yeah, that's not on the list. But, but it's important because it's like, that's when I realized what horror movies could be and what they could do, to start delving in and doing all this stuff and going into the corners where it's like, I think I'm too afraid. I don't know. That movie looks too weird. I'm like, yeah, there are some weird movies out there, but if you open yourself up to them, you can find a favorite movie, which is what mine is. The Phantom of the Paradise, a gothic rock opera set in the glam rock era of America. It's insane. You've got Faustian deals. You've got essentially a Phantom of the Opera riff, guitar riff, if you will. And yeah, it's just such it's Brian De Palma, who I haven't seen a lot of De Palma's work, but he loved the first Mission Impossible. That's so yeah, and it's like it's got all of his touchstones, it's very voyeuristic. He's doing a lot of stuff with like split screens and going off and doing and yeah, man, it's wild. It's great. It's also huge in Canada. Really? Not huge here at all.
Yeah, it's very, very much like a cult classic.
Very much a cult classic. But yeah, in Winnipeg, Canada, I forget where Winnipeg is, but in Winnipeg, they have like an annual Phantom of the Opera festival, where they just play the movie, and a lot of times they get like the cast and stuff to come out there and like go just talk and
so yeah. Phantom of the Opera?
No, Phantom of the Paradise.
Oh, okay. You said opera.
Sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry. Yeah. They have a big Phantom of the Paradise fest there, and so they'll get like the actors from the movie to like go and talk and, yeah
And Paul Williams is still around, right?
Yeah. Paul Williams is
Because
still around.
I remember meeting him. We did an event at Barnes and Noble.
Mm-hmm.
That was super cool. I didn't really know who he was until that event. Like I started seeing all his other stuff, but I
Mm-hmm.
had seen Phantom of the Paradise at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Saw it with a bunch of friends one night. I probably, you know, self-medicated a little too much, medicinally speaking. I was in LA, in
Drinking
California, of
grandpa's
course.
cough medicine, right?
Oh yeah, that too. But I was in California, so I could legally do or well, whatever. I could do things, you know.
Partake in things that are not legal elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And we started watching that movie, and I was not having it, man. I was tripping out. I was like, "What the hell is this?" Um, and there was a guy there. He was like a friend of one of my friends who lived there. Who was like hitting on me the whole time. I'm like, nah, man. Like this is just not the vibe. Just wasn't right that night. So I kind of just like hung out closer with the girl I was with, and yeah, just weird vibes, dude. And I was like tripping out so bad. And I'm like, I'm watching this movie and like having this really like surreal experience. And I'm like, you know what? Sammy would really love this movie. So I text you. I don't remember if you text me back or if it was like the next day or what, but I remember you telling me like, yeah, dude, I love that movie. I was like, hey, Sam, you got to check out this movie, man. It's Phantom of the Paradise. It's right up your alley, dude.
And you're 100%.
I don't know if
right.
you've ever heard of this before.
Oh, God.
But this is right up your alley, Sam.
Not that many people have heard of it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's really popular in Canada, though. Okay, so if you could do a sequel to Phantom of the Paradise,
No.
the same way Phantom of the Opera had a sequel,
No.
no, you wouldn't touch it.
No.
What if Paul Williams called you up, knocked on your door, and said, "Sam, I need help. I'm writing the sequel, and I got writer's block."
I'd say, Paul, I applaud this. I'm glad that you've come around on Phantom of the Paradise, and you want to delve more into it, but you're wrong. And the only thing to do is to let me make a spiritual sequel. It's not going to be in any way related to Phantom of the Paradise, but it's going to be a spiritual sequel. You know, taking the ideas, the themes, the look, you know, of the whole thing. But I'm not doing a remake.
That's cool.
I'm not doing a straight up sequel. I'm not doing a prequel. No. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I could stand behind that.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Speaking of tragic musical genius,
oh boy,
that takes me to my number 10. Amadeus.
Oh man. Heck yeah.
It was not Stewie mocking me that day. It was God. I talk about Amadeus, but I always think of that Family Guy joke. You know, that's awesome. Yeah. Amadeus, man. So I was in the stage show Amadeus in college.
I saw that show.
It was one of my easier roles because I had no lines. I was just in the background. I was the major domo. Who, if you don't know what that is, they're like essentially you have the guys who just they're like kind of like the servants. So in the context of the show, we would move the furniture between scenes. So we were there, and like I loved our suits. We had like it was just like a royal blue and gold, and we had like the powdered wigs, and it was so cool. I, for the first time in my life, had to shave my legs because we were wearing tights. Talk about an experience, man. Yeah, man, it was just it was crazy. So I was the major domo. I was the one in charge of all the other like man servants, butlers. I don't know what you want to call them. So it was interesting. It was an experience, like certainly an experience. Like I have friends who were like in the main cast who had a great time. Everyone in the background, like it was kind of toxic, man. Like no one was taking it seriously, and that like really bummed me out. You know, I was like, oh man. But it introduced me to the story, and like the script for the play was phenomenal, and I thought the film adaptation was pretty damn good. There's a few things I would have done differently.
Of
Uh,
course.
yeah, like, well, like they cut some of the monologues from the film just so it can flow better, you know.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, and it's a shame because they cut some good stuff, but the film, man, is amazing. F. Murray Abraham as Salieri is such like, it's tragic, but what do you want to call it? Like, just to see the downfall of this man. He is his own doom, you know. He's the one who causes his own reckoning, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my god, it's amazing. And to see him in the old man makeup, because he's kind of narrating the whole movie.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story. And I was like, oh my god. Such a good film, man. Absolutely loved it. I love the music, and I love the whole, like, quote unquote climax of the film, which I won't spoil in case anyone hasn't watched it before, but just to see these artists and someone so eccentric like Amadeus
Mhm.
creating, you know, and like making music, and it's like, oh man, and the way they represent how he actually, like, um I don't know, it's such just like visual and audio thing, because they're musicians, so it's all things you can hear, but these guys, like, they're having to write it, you know. So it's this weird collaboration between those two senses,
Mhm.
and like, it's not just writing music, it's like an art the way you write it as well, but then they're also telling a story. Amadeus doesn't just want the trumpets this volume just because they sound good. No, it's a story. These are the angels. So the trumpets start on high and they're
Mhm.
blaring down on you. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh man, it's so wild. Um, Highly recommend it. But it's also interesting too, because I heard Hans Zimmer talking about his score for Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, and it's very similar. And then the
Mm.
things he does with the horns, he's like, because this is Gotham City, you know, they're like the gargoyles looking down on the story. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, I'm
interesting.
like, that is so cool. And it instantly reminded me of this film.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just because they sound cool, or because, like, I think thematically, Batman need represent the horns represent Batman. It's like,
Mhm.
no, it's this gothic tale and this gothic story, and it's like these old gargoyles watching it all happen. I'm
Mhm.
like, mind blown. It's gonna sound ridiculous, but put Hans Zimmer in more things. That would mean everything. So
Yeah.
that's my top 10. Number
Okay.
10. So yeah.
Okay. I like it. I was trying to think about how to like segue into that. Or how to
Speaking of gargoyles and angels.
Yeah, gargoyles and angels. Well, angels thematically fit into this next one.
Mm.
Um and speaking of, like, like opera and this sort of like crazy, like, okay, here's the thing. Space opera is all about high stakes, high tension, high emotions, big emotions. I will forever defend Revenge of the Sith as the pinnacle of what the space opera should be,
Mm-hmm.
because it's operatic. You've got John Williams blaring, like all this fantastic, triumphant and, sad music. The acting is might be a little stunted, but it's all about the feeling that's behind it, and it's all about how everything is cohesive, how everything works together. And I think it's a masterpiece. The same can be said in a different way about Danny Boyle's Sunshine.
Mm. Man, what a movie.
What a movie,
Mm-hmm.
man. Just dumped into the cinema. Hardly any marketing.
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about movies that don't get their due, that didn't get their due in theater. Sunshine is like peak. It's up there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the premise, it sounds silly. It sounds like a Roland Emmerich movie, where it's like,
yeah, it does.
it's like you got a bunch of scientists on a giant ship heading to the sun to try and reignite it.
They got
a bunch of nukes.
They're going to nuke
the sun.
That's the Michael Bay pitch.
Yeah, they're going to nuke the sun. Exactly. And so, if you go into it with like, oh, this is going to be ridiculous, like you're going to be disappointed, because this is about as heady as science fiction gets.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of these people, all of these scientists starting the movie believing in some form or another in their job and their mission, and slowly over the course of the film realizing that they're not coming back.
Yeah.
And what that does to them and the decisions that they have to make once they realize that, and how they're trying to rectify that or not, because that's a huge thing too, like being in denial of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-blowing. You got music by John Murphy and Underworld in a fantastic collaboration. Like,
I
this could be a whole episode just on Sunshine.
This could be, and I'll just say this on the music. The John Murphy Underworld collaboration on Sunshine has also impacted the rest of the film industry score. Like, I think a lot of people, as underrated as this movie was, a lot of people noticed that score, and it's been used since. And we kind of talked about this the other day. They kind of used it in Kick-Ass. They used it in a big pivotal moment in Wonder Woman 83 or whatever it was called.
84. Yeah.
84. And yeah, that was a big impact. And I think it kind of got studios more interested in that. Now, I don't think it's directly related, but it could be, because after that collab in that film, we started seeing a lot more collabs. It was right after that Junkie XL started really working on film scores. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then there's another
Junkie XL, who are proteges. I think they started working under Hans Zimmer. Yeah,
that's right. They started with the DC movies.
Yeah.
And then they did Mad Max as well, right? Fury Road.
Yeah, they did Fury Road.
Yeah. And then of course, like the Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and they were working with David Fincher already, I think, by that point. But
yeah. But it did kind of, it wasn't a huge thing, but it did kind of usher in this sort of like, musicians becoming part of, film scores, or collaborating in some way or form. It's a fantastic movie. It's a beautiful movie, like for whatever their budget was. It's such a beautiful movie. Really a movie that knows how to make the most of its sets and its space, and really just allowing character, because you don't have like small timers in this movie. You have like Michelle Yeoh is in this movie, our boy Haruki Sanada is in it. You got Cliff Curtis, Chris Evans is in it, like you've got, and of course Cillian Murphy. You've got like these fantastic actors, and it's like, it's a great movie. It's a fantastic movie. There is I won't say it's a twist, because they really do like start talking about this and setting it up very early in the movie, but there is almost a tonal and almost a genre shift in the third act that a lot of people have said is bad and it ruins the movie. Tarantino is one of them, and everybody's wrong.
Yeah, Tarantino has said if it wasn't for the third act of Sunshine, this would have been his favorite film of all time. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Because like, of all the films to pick, this one, like, wow.
Yeah.
But I agree, man. Like this is something else. Like I'll go to bat for Sunshine to the day I die, man. Like
Yeah.
it kind of goes back to what you said in the beginning. Like it's so good, heady, cerebral science fiction. You know, this is what sci-fi has always been about. And like I think people kind of just take it on face value, like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. This is the plot. This is what's happening. That third act kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere, and to them it feels kind of cheap. But if you really pay attention and you really get into the headiness of this film, like you kind of see it coming. It doesn't really happen in the way you expect, but you kind of like everything in the third act was foreshadowed beautifully.
Yeah.
And I will sit down and watch the movie with you after you've seen it once, so no spoilers, and then we'll watch it again and I will point out all the clues that were leading to that third act. It's like I think it's Danny Boyle's best film. I think it's a masterpiece.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So great film. I also think it's one of Chris Evans' best roles. So
yes. Yeah.
And we kind of discussed this off the pod, but it's getting more love nowadays because of Oppenheimer. Everyone's looking up Cillian Murphy's filmography and they're like, what's this? Sunshine. And like, so it's, and also after Michelle Yeoh, you know, she won the Oscar last year. Like everyone's kind of noticing this movie. The only thing is I wish it had a bigger budget, because if they had filmed this for IMAX, it would have destroyed.
Yes.
You watch this on like the best quality TV that money can buy, you're going to be blown away. I can't even imagine what it would be like in the IMAX.
You want to talk about like Interstellar and how like beautiful that movie was in IMAX?
Yeah.
Sunshine would have been better.
Yeah,
Sunshine would have blown it out of the water.
I think like as far as like the visuals, because Interstellar was a much bigger budget than this film. But just the experience and the music, like it's very much would have been Interstellar years before Interstellar. So, and you don't have to sit down for like a 3-hour movie. It's much shorter.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You know,
I love Interstellar.
I love Interstellar. I love 3-hour movies.
Speaking of which, Cillian Murphy just gave an interview and they asked like, what Nolan film weren't you in that you wish you were? And he said Interstellar, hands down.
Dude, I'm saying.
Yeah, and he said his kids were little when that movie came out, and he just remembers just crying in the cinema because it's about a dad and his daughter, you know. And I'm like, man, it was an experience. Yeah. But he said, but at the same time, I'm really glad I wasn't, because I got to enjoy it as an audience member. I was like, yeah, I can feel that.
I can feel that. Yeah.
Damn,
man.
Yeah. Well, speaking of father and children dramas.
Okay.
That takes me into my number 9, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Okay.
Man, this movie to this day still means so much to me. Like everyone talks about their favorite Wes Anderson movies and no one ever talks about Life Aquatic. And it breaks my heart because I really, really like it. And, you know, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Bill Murray. Just, I don't know. Just one, you know, he has a reputation, you know, off camera. But 2, a lot of his roles are just like, he's kind of just doing the same thing over and over in a lot of stuff. But then on other occasions and other films, like he does really shine, you know?
Yeah.
And this one I think is definitely a highlight for me, for Bill Murray. But everyone there, man, like I also feel like this is kind of the film that like rebooted Jeff Goldblum's career, because like he was gone for a while
in an odd way. Yeah.
Right. And then like I remember like it was being a big deal when he showed up in this film, and then after that, like he's kind of felt like he's been steady. He's
been like consistently back since.
Yeah. So I don't know. Just the music I love the visuals. Wes Anderson has a very unique style, but it feels different in this one because there is like more of a realm of like the fantastical, because he's not really filming under the ocean, you know? So how does Wes Anderson fake that but still do it in his style? You know what I mean? It really feels like a stage play, and especially with the ship, the way they have the whole ship like on a sound stage. I
Yeah.
loved it. The only part that doesn't feel like a stage play is also one of my favorite scenes. Is when they storm the island
Storm the Island.
to
Yeah.
save the accountant, and it's just a flat out action film, and I'm like, dude, this is so cool. I love that. He's like, what's he say? He's like, oh, no hard feelings. You're just a Bond company stooge. Maybe, but I'm also a person. You're right. That was unfair. Put it in. They all do like the high five. I love that. Maybe, but I'm still a person.
It's like, is this my coffee machine? This is my coffee machine.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't understand. How did you get this? We fucking stole it, man.
Dude, I love it. And I loved it. Owen Wilson. I felt like it was a kind of a tonally different role for him. You know, in a big way, he kind of plays the straight man in this crazy world. You know, everyone's comedic, even if they're not purposely doing so purposely. You know, he's kind of like just this straight and narrow character. He's just trying to bond with this man he believes is his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was nice. I mean, Owen Wilson's always had, you know, a different vibe. Like when he's been in Wes Anderson films.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, I hadn't really seen a lot of Wes Anderson movies. So for me, like that was kind of the first one where I'm like, oh, this Owen Wilson guy. Mm-hmm. Like maybe he can do more than just comedy, you know?
Yeah.
Even though this was comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So Life Aquatic. So, and the song at the climax from Sigur Rós. That
tears
scene,
every time, man.
As low as this is on my top 10 list, this is one of the only films that like will always get me crying. Like that final scene, you know? He's like, you think he remembers me?
Oh
like,
man!
Oh my god, dude!
Stop
I just
it!
Feel the stab, you know?
Yeah. That's
God, I'm getting emotional right now. I'm just like,
I know.
Shut up, Sam. Go on, number 8.
See, well, like that's kind of the thing too about like Wes Anderson movies. Like there is a difference between how he depicts his worlds. You know, he sets it up. You said it perfectly. Like he sets up all of his worlds like they're a stage play. You know, even though like this one is more like, oh, we're doing like kind of like a documentary style thing, it still feels like a play. Mm-hmm. And it's strange because I feel like within that artifice, within this construction of these fake worlds, Wes Anderson can like get into like the truth of the thing. You know, it's like, yeah, like these situations can be comedic or, you know, like the dialogue can be weird, but they can also just like, you could get away with putting the entire thesis of the movie in a line and it coming off as 100% real and still get a reaction from people. And yeah, like it's moments like that, you know, that really do, you know, like they hit hard and you're like, dang, like I thought this was just going to be a funny little movie about these people in a little boat, you know, going off filming a movie. But no, it also had to make me cry. Yeah.
So I also love how much this film was about exploration. That's something that will always, you know, get me like that side of me, that kid is still alive somewhere inside, you know, just like, I want to go explore, you know?
Yeah.
The kid, you know, as kids, we were all so certain that quicksand was going to be a much larger problem in our life than it actually turned out to be. Yeah. Like that little guy's still alive in me. I'm like, let's go on an adventure, you know, like actually physical, like life risking.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that, this film really speaks to that kid. So
I feel that. In an odd way, this next film, number 8, for me, does also kind of speak to kid me, but in a different way. I have a lot of memories of our grandpa. Mostly all of them are Well, most of them are when I would pretend to be sick at school, trying to get mom to come pick me up, and then mom wouldn't come pick us up. She did a few times, but there were times where she was like, no, you have to stay in school. And there were a few times where I called grandpa and told him that I was sick, and he came and picked me up.
Without question, he would be there.
Without question, he was there in his little. Did he have a Cadillac?
I think so. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like a different brand Cadillac or something, just a different style. But he'd come. We'd go. He'd buy me McDonald's, and then we'd go, and then he would call my mom and be like, "Hey, I have Sam."
She's like, what? He wasn't feeling good.
So while I was enjoying my McDonald's, waiting for mom, it was always the thing. It was like, okay, either like watching cartoons on Cartoon Network, or watching one of Grandpa's shows, or picking a movie from his cabinet. And the movie I picked the most from that cabinet was the one that had Harrison Ford's face on it. Because I knew Harrison Ford from Indiana Jones and Star Wars. And I was like, yeah, I know that guy. He's Indy. Yeah, I know this guy. Let's watch this movie. And so I would sit down with my McDonald's Sprite and Grandpa in the recliner, and I would watch The Fugitive.
Yes.
What a movie to watch when you're like 6-7 years old. Always terrified me. The opening of the movie always terrified me, but like I wanted to keep watching because I liked this, I liked this guy. Also, I think by that time started picking up like who actors were, so I also knew, hey, that Tommy Lee Jones guy, he's in that Batman movie that I just saw. I kind of like him. So and as a kid, that was a big deal, finding actors that you liked because they were in a bad Batman movie, even though I'll defend Batman forever. But yeah, dude, The Fugitive is a classic. It is, it's so good because it is Harrison Ford has like a different career from like the other sort of like action stars of that era. I think particularly because he was always down to play characters who, one, they would stick their hands in the muck, like they're willing to get gritty, but he was always willing to play characters who had all of the odds stacked against him. And outside of like Indy and Han, I don't think he ever played like an action hero who was, like guns blazing and you knew he was going to come out alive at the end. He's able to play, like these characters, with such humility. And I think, for my money, I think his role in The Fugitive, like it's one of his best because he isn't this like action star. He's just a doctor. And he's trying to figure out why he's been set up, why his wife is dead, all of these things, being on the run, and he's trying to do it as best as he can. And yeah, you just like, you never believe for a second that he's capable of this. So automatically we're endeared to him. And it's like, okay, now I just don't want to see this guy get caught.
Yeah.
And when you've got Tommy Lee Jones as a U.S. Marshal after him with, all the resources at his disposal, you're like, I don't know. I think this guy's going to get caught. It's such a crazy movie where you're following two protagonists who are antagonists to each other. And then slowly they're leading each other to the real antagonists. Yeah. And it's such a great movie. Yeah, a weird like a little time capsule to Chicago too, because I know a lot of like the buildings and places that they filmed at aren't there anymore. Yeah, man, and so, the score, the cinematography, so great.
Yeah. I just read an article how they thought it was going to be a flop. They talk to Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones, and they're like, "What the hell are we doing, man? We're running around." They're talking about where they're running around through like the laundry scene at the end. And Tommy Lee Jones is like, "This is gonna, this is gonna suck." But then like everyone was surprised by like the almost instant success. This wasn't one of those slow burn cult classics. Like when it premiered, it was huge, and like none of the creators really saw that coming. They're like, "Oh wow." So I don't know, man. Maybe it's just timing. Maybe they just had really good trailers. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. But, I mean, they're because it's based off of the TV show.
Yeah.
And the TV show did well enough. I think it went like 3 or 4 seasons, and like that in itself in that, era, is incredible all its own. And so like, I think going off of that to the movie, I can see like some like, some trepidation, but yeah, they had to have had like great marketing or something for it.
And I mean, you like the characters, kind of like you said, you're on Richard's side, but you also like Sam Gerard and his team.
Yeah.
Which was crazy because they did a sequel, U.S. Marshals, which I didn't realize was a sequel until I was watching it. I'm like, wait a minute, because the exact same team shows up. I'm like, these are the guys from The Fugitive. This time they're hunting Wesley Snipes, who's also been is on the run for a crime he didn't commit. Not as good as The Fugitive, but it was still good. It was fun. I liked it. I kind of wish they had continued with that team,
Yeah, I do too.
Speaking of which, one of the guys on the team, you know who he is? Arts from Lost.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah, he was the, I don't know, the big white guy.
Yeah, he's the tall white guy with the mustache.
Yeah.
Wow. The one who's not Joey Pants.
Joey Pants?
Yeah, Joe Pantoliano.
Oh yeah.
We in the industry know him as Joey Pants.
Okay, well, I don't have a transition for this one. So just gonna go, what is this? Number
8. No.
8.
Yeah,
8. This one just came out a few years ago. So it's still very new compared to a lot of this list. From the creators of The Raid. Well, not really, but the fight team from The Raid. And I'm sorry, I do not know how to pronounce the director's name. His first name is Timo, so I'm going to call it Timo. The Night Comes for Us. My God. Is this the best action movie of the past 10 years? I don't know. There's a lot of action fans out there who will say no, but this one's certainly my favorite. Like, I fell in love with The Raid when it came out. Like it felt like it came out of nowhere. It just blew the doors off like the action industry, and stunt teams and fighters everywhere are watching it, and everyone's like, how do we do that? And the cast, the creators, everyone, they got all these big opportunities now, so that they go do The Raid 2, which was a pretty damn good movie. Action-wise, it wasn't as good as the first one, so I think why The Raid 2 is very underrated. But that final kitchen fight, I think, is one of the best fight scenes ever. But then the crew and the fight team eventually move on to this one. It went straight to Netflix, directed by Timo. I believe it's Indonesia, right? Yeah, so it's like just like The Raid is Indonesian crew, everything. And they go and do this movie, which The Raid was cool. It was action. It was violent. This one goes even further. I won't say that, I won't compare the action because they're two totally different things.
Yeah.
It's different, but like it's so much more like intricate. Whereas The Raid was just downright brutal about survival. This one is almost like, I want to say like tactical, like the way they filmed it. This film definitely had a bigger budget than both of the Raids. But man, just the action in this movie was crazy, and it was so bloody, which is not something I look forward to in a film. But like, this was like horror movie equivalent of an action film. Like, it's bloody. And like everything's kind of like generic, you know. You start with a bad guy who he doesn't want to kill a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and then the entire movie is him trying to get this kid to safety.
Yeah.
And you're pretty sure he's going to die doing it because that's how he's going to redeem himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing new, but the way they do it, the way they handle the relationships, is just so cool. I don't even know what else to say about it. Like, I saw someone commenting on it just, I think earlier today. It's like, look, this isn't the first time I've seen a human body used as a weapon sheath, but it's always pretty cool. I was like,
it's
yeah,
always
the
pretty
girl just
cool.
like sticks the sword in a guy, beats up some other dude, and pulls the sword out. I was like, oh man, yeah. So anytime people mention the Raid, I was like, go watch those, then watch Night Comes for Us, because you see the step up, you see the higher quality budget, what these guys are kind of, because I don't want to keep comparing it, but like everyone does, especially because it's the same actors as well. It's the same cast mostly. Everyone does, and it's like the Raid was like, that's an indie film, you know, low budget, down, dirty, gritty. This one is this is more bigger studio. They had the financing, but they weren't like bogged down by like the quote unquote Hollywood studio. You know, this doesn't feel like a movie where you had a bunch of execs giving, you know, notes like, oh, there's one female character, she's got to be the romantic lead. It's like, no, like, I'm like, okay, that's cool. You know, it's just little things like that. I kind of feel like they just let Timo do whatever he wanted and let him go. So, and this is the guy who's now doing the remake of Train to Busan. So I'm like, oh,
yeah, which I'm very tentative about, just because like it's a remake of an already fantastic movie.
Yeah, it's not needed.
Like, it's like it's not needed, but it's the fact that it's Timo doing it that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm gonna be I'm optimistically excited for this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And now Timo and his brother, they're horror movie directors.
Yeah.
So I think that's very interesting how they jumped into action. And we've talked about this before on the pod, how horror and action go hand in hand, because both genres require a certain amount of intensity and then a little bit of a rest, and then you jump back into it, because that's how you keep the audience on the, you know, on the edge of their seat. You know, it's both similar way. Comedies similar, but you can go longer with less jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like action and horror really go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So very interesting. Can't wait to see more from Timo. This is a great film. Go watch it. The Night Comes for Us.
There you go. Enough said. Speaking of great films, go watch it. You know, I waxed poetic about space opera, you know, a couple minutes ago. Still on that same kick. Sometimes a movie doesn't have to be operatic in the same way. You know, sometimes it can just be a fun little thing, you know? Sometimes it can just be the fourth installment of a franchise that is all about a group of friends, because they are friends, a group of friends.
No, Sam, they're family.
Oh, they're okay, that's right. It's like a group of co-workers who became friends and then are now family. Gosh, I can see the writing on the wall for Fast and Furious. It's just going to become Star Trek. Yeah, you know, all right, fine. No point in beating around the bush. Number 7 is Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. If you know me at all, you already knew this was coming. If this wasn't going to be on the list, it's like, why are we even here? I think for the longest time, I didn't have this movie on like my top 10 favorite movies.
Yeah.
And it was when you said that we were going to do this that I really was like, okay, like, what do I do? Like, how am I going to approach the list? How am I going to do this thing? And I just had to like push all the BS aside, all the film Twitter stuff out of the way. And it would be like, no, what are the movies that constantly bring me joy and inspire me and make me feel like if I could do something half as good as this, I'll be fulfilled in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. No question about it. The Voyage Home is the best Star Trek movie. It's not action packed. It's not, a fantastic drama. If anything, it's a comedy, but it's so honest. And you can just tell that everybody had a blast making it. It's ridiculous in the same way that the show is ridiculous. And I think it really like, I think we as Star Trek fans sometimes forget that this is a silly show.
Right.
That this is, for all of the cool things that we've gotten out of it, for all the great movies and great episodes, fantastic writing and acting that comes out of this, a lot of it is silly. But in that silliness, there can be a sincerity and there can be an honest thing. And what is more honest than needing to go back in time to save creatures that no longer exist because of human hubris, because of our own faults, because of the decisions we made. We're seeing it real time right now that, the world is reacting to the terrible things that we as human beings have done to it. And now orcas are attacking ships off the Gulf of Portugal. This happened. I just read a thing, earlier today that like, yep, that happened a couple of days ago. Yeah, man, like poignant, maybe the most poignant Star Trek movie, but also just fun. It's such a fun thing, and for being the fourth movie of a franchise that was canceled, that would have stayed dead were it not for a fervent fan community, for the fans banding together being like, no, this is important and we need this. Star Trek lives, breathes, and dies by its fandom. And the fact that Star Trek 4 we got to 4 and have continued on is a testament to the fans. It's fantastic. Everybody, all the characters get something to do, and it's a fun time all around, where you get to see the crew of the Enterprise going back to present day, which I think was like the 80s, San Francisco, to save a pair of humpback whales from extinction and bringing them into the future. And again, you want to talk about ridiculous premise. That's a ridiculous premise right there, but it works. It works so well, and it's so good. The movie doesn't need a villain. It doesn't have big space battles. And, it does the best thing that science fiction always does, and just answers the question of what if we could change this? What if we didn't have to just endure, the terribleness? What if we could go back and change that and rectify a mistake that we made, that we all collectively made, and let happen? And fantastic.
And that's the thing with science fiction as well. Like it's not just the good science fiction. It's not just made up, it's always some kind of reflection or a view of our own world, but we're kind of seeing it through this view of the future, of this kind of, or just this more space sci-fi lens. And Star Trek has been really good at that, and in a lot of ways too, that's like the best of Star Wars too. When you look at the tyranny and the fascism, it's like, George Lucas just didn't pull that out of his butt. Like he actually taking notes from history and using that to fuel his Star Wars, I love it. There's no Star Trek movies on my list, and I really kind of fought with that. I'm like, man, is Voyage Home on my top 10? Like, maybe it will be one day. Like
one day,
one day. I don't know. Like, cause like I I agree. That is the best Star Trek movie. You don't have to watch the show to enjoy it or the other films. But if you do, then you see the growth, you know? And that's something too, like I still think original series nowadays is very underrated because everyone's jumping into watching the new Star Trek or everyone's jumping in starting with Next Generation. With this, it's good. That's fine. I love it. There's a lot of people out there who don't want to experience the original series. A lot of it has to do with William Shatner. I get it.
Yeah.
We talked about this on this pod before. Sam and I have certain opinions on William Shatner due to real life experience. Yeah. I get it, you know, but at the same time, I'm able to separate Shatner from Kirk, and to see Kirk go from the young Kirk in the series into his journey through the movies is one of the coolest things, because especially at that time when I was younger, even now, like what other example do we have of that, you know, to see our hero actually aging. Now we're in this world where we keep wanting to bring the old guys back. Harrison Ford, Liam Neeson, you know, but we actually see William Shatner and we actually see Kirk age throughout the decades of the series and the films, and the character journey he goes on is at times unpleasant. You know, he does some questionable things, but it does kind of make him more real, and you understand his perspective, even if you don't agree with it. So this movie was so cool because it focused on the characters and it was fun, and you can't get a movie like this anymore. Yeah. You know, because to just jump genres almost into comedy, and it's like, man, love it. So it's not on my top 10 list, but I understand, Sam.
Maybe it should be. Maybe it should be. Reevaluate your life choices, Matt.
Maybe. What is the 7?
Yeah.
7. Speaking of differing perspectives. This is probably the newest film on my list.
Okay.
The story of differing perspectives. Enemies forced to do battle, but in the end, they realize, no, we're the same. We're brothers. That's right.
Godzilla v Kong?
Yes. No. RRR. This movie, oh my God, changed my life. Sam sent me the trailer when it first came out. I'm like, man, this looks crazy, but I've seen some crazy stuff. I'm like, okay. And then I hear Sam and Mickey talking about this movie. They're like, it's really good. It's really good. I'm like, I don't know, guys. It's like 3.5 hours. I'll watch it eventually.
And it's worth every single second.
Dude, I watched it like at 1 a.m. I'm like, this is a long film. It's too late, but let me just put it on. Oh my God. I was laughing. I was crying. I was cheering. Like, I don't know if I've ever made that much noise, like by myself watching a movie, you know, in my bedroom. I'm like, it was so wild. Like, is it cheesy? Hell yes. But like, you know what you're getting into once you, like, 15, 20 minutes of the movie, you should know what kind of movie you're in for, you know? You're like, oh God. So cheesy, but fun. But then like, it gets super dramatic, super dark. I don't really want to go too much into it because just even the plot just kept surprising me. It's just twist and surprise after surprise. And Ray Stevenson, R.I.P., man, he plays the villain. Such a villainous role, man, him and his wife. Yeah, like I was in tears, and then mid-tier they jump into song again. I was like, oh yeah, this is technically a musical, but I'm still crying because it's so good. Like, man. And there's a reason why it won the Oscar for best song. That's the best part of the movie. I love the whole film, but that dance sequence was so good.
Yeah.
Like, guys, you have to watch it, man.
Yeah, you have to experience it.
and freedom fighter inadvertently becoming best friends, forced to fight, but realizing they're brothers, not by blood, but by bond. Oh my God. Man, it's every emotion on the emotional spectrum is felt in this film. Also, maybe every genre except sci-fi, but there's romance, there's horror, there's drama and tragedy.
There's comedy.
Oh, there's romance. So much comedy. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So good. RRR.
RRR.
Man. That's all I got to say about that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. All right, Sam, bring it in.
Dang.
Bring it home.
Following that up, I'm going to talk about a silly little spoof of a movie. We're talking about Young Frankenstein, okay? How am I supposed to follow Young Frankenstein? yeah, okay. No, we're talking about Young Frankenstein. Look, I love horror movies. I love the black and white ones, maybe more than others that, have come along. But there's something so timeless about just a comedy that's spoofing one of the greatest stories ever written, one of the best movies ever made, especially when you've got it written and directed by Mel Brooks, starring Gene Wilder. There's absolutely no question. Young Frankenstein is one of the funniest movies of all time. It's so, and like kind of watching this in tandem with, Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein growing up. We didn't own Abbott and Costello, but we would rent it from Blockbuster all the time. And I think after one time of watching Young Frankenstein from Blockbuster, Dad just bought Young Frankenstein. So, and then that just, here we go. Saturday night. What are we going to watch? Let's watch Young Frankenstein. Yeah.
That's the ultimate Halloween double feature for me. You start with Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, and you end it with Young Frankenstein.
With Young Frankenstein. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't done that in a while. I haven't watched them on Halloween, but I think I'm going to do it this year.
Yeah.
Oh God. It's so hard to talk about this movie because what do you even talk about? It's so funny. I think the great things about about Mel Brooks movies, and especially ones that are spoofing other things, like this one's spoofing horror, Blazing Saddles is spoofing Westerns. He has a whole Hitchcock spoof, High Anxiety. I think the great thing about his movies is that they still feel like singular stories, that exist within some kind of canon. Blazing Saddles is a great Western by itself. Young Frankenstein exists and feels like it exists in tandem with the old James Whale Frankenstein. It just feels, and they make reference of that too, like the inspector has a wooden arm because his arm got ripped off by the monster, and the other one, or something like that. Everybody's worried about their children because, the monster drowned a little girl last time, so they don't want that again. Just also played for laughs and, in a great moment. But yeah, it's like there's so much comedy going on, even when you don't realize it, and so many little jokes that it's like after watching it, 3, 4, 5 times, like you're still gonna find little things, to laugh at.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that either. Like, it's technically it's a sequel to Frankenstein.
Yeah.
It's a comedic sequel, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
So knowing that, it's like, oh yeah. But unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people who aren't very familiar with Mel Brooks, or whatever in general, like they don't really know what this movie is. Because like they see like, oh, black and white. I think they actually feel like, oh, this is like Abbott and Costello era films.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
no, this film was made in black and white on purpose.
Yeah.
To because it was their comedic version of the original Frankenstein. So I think a lot of people, like a lot of stuff kind of gets lost in translation, because it surprised me how many people don't discover this film until they're already older, like us, like our age. And I'm like, man, we've been watching this since we were kids.
Yeah.
You know, even our cousins, they didn't watch it till their teens, maybe early 20s.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, but everyone's familiar with Spaceballs, Blazing Saddles, you know, all of
Robin
the other
Hood.
Mel Brooks. Yeah, all the other Mel Brooks stuff. And it's like, so it's like it kind of gets lost because people actually think like, oh, it's this older film, when it's not. It's just made to look that way. And of course, you know, not a lot of humor ages, or it's just different, you know. I could get how Abbott and Costello isn't everyone's thing.
Yeah.
Because it is a much more older school style slapstick kind of stuff. So I kind of feel like
Very
that's what
vaudeville,
people just
yeah.
I think that's what people think this is when it's not. Like Young Frankenstein, like the humor, it's timeless. Like it hasn't aged. You know, unlike even some of Mel Brooks' other stuff, there's a few jokes in there like, oh man, that was edgy then. It's even edgier now. But still, overall, like a lot of his stuff is very timeless, and I think Young Frankenstein is like the perfect example of that.
Yeah.
So, also for being Mel Brooks, it's extremely PG. Like there's a lot of insinuation, but it doesn't go too far. Yeah. So I also feel like it's his most family friendly film.
I think the rating is PG.
PG, right?
Yeah. Because with a few exceptions, you know, for some kind of risque stuff. Yeah, it's not as vulgar.
And even then, like the risque stuff in this film, a kid wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
Whereas the other films, it is more vulgar, and it's like, oh, a kid may not get the context, but they would realize, oh, that's an adult joke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's very well hidden in Young Frankenstein. So yeah, man, that's a good one. Love it.
Kat and I are always doing, you know, like their wolf, their castle. Why are you talking like that? I thought you wanted to. No, I don't want to.
It's so quotable.
It's so quotable. It's so bad. Like that's the thing. Like the jokes aren't even that complex. They're just like, oh not. My god, it's so dumb.
Yes, say it. Victor was my boyfriend. I love it.
Oh boy.
Oh man. All right, guys, we've already been doing this for a while, so let's end it with my number 6. Very similar to number 7. A story of two people from opposite backgrounds ending up in a perfect relationship, and they're brothers, but they realize that they can't be. That's right. We're going back to the OG, baby. Point Break.
Yeah.
Oh, Keanu Reeves. Patrick Swayze. Oh, man.
You want me, Johnny? You want me so bad it tastes like acid in your mouth.
Oh, damn. I love it.
Oh, Catherine Bigelow.
Good... Oh, dude. I know. Catherine Bigelow. Yeah, man. Damn. Such a good film.
I almost put Near Dark on here.
Oh, interesting.
Because that's, for me, the best vampire movie of, I think, 1983, the year that it came out. It came out the same year as The Lost Boys, and I love Near Dark immensely more.
Yeah. I got mixed feelings for Lost Boys, but I love Point Break.
Point Break is a classic, and a classic for a reason.
Yep. Must be a asshole shortage in LA, huh? Not so far. I just love it. Like the premise is crazy. I guess it's based off of a book, which was based off of true stories, which was about a group of bank robbers who were also surfers. So they just really go into it, though.
Yeah.
Like, man, I don't know what to say. This was the premise of Fast and Furious. The whole concept was like, let's do a modern Point Break. And they're like, well, we could do it with street racers and make it for like the modern MTV audience. And that's what the first Fast and Furious was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, The Fast and the Furious.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. And I'm like, and you know what? It's still pretty solid. Like, I think the really first solid. Fast and Furious still holds up. Yeah, man, it's not bad. Like, so yeah, man, I love it. Love this film. I don't even know what to say. Like, the action was good. It's just cheesy enough for you to fall in love with it. Like, you really, and you love the characters, you know, you love Johnny Utah, you love Bodhi, you know, you get what Bodhi's saying, you get his perspective and like his reasoning, and you also understand like he doesn't want to do what he's doing to Johnny, but he has to. But at the same point, or at the same time, he gets greedy. I'm like, oh, damn, dude. Like, yeah, it's such a good film. Surfing. I'm not a very good swimmer, so I've never really been surfing, but I wish I was, just so I could learn how to surf. Like, man.
Yeah.
And there's skydiving, surfing, beach football.
See, here's the thing. Here's the thing that gets me about the remake of Point Break is that, you know, they took that aspect of the original, of, you know, like, oh, we have to do all of these other big extreme stuff, you know, we got to make it bigger, we got to do all these things. It's like, no, that was never the point of Point Break. The point of it is that you're on this journey, you get to sit with these characters in one location, and they're, you know, you're experiencing it, you're experiencing their world. You know, you get to be, the Keanu Reeves is the audience, and he gets to go along this journey with all these people. He gets to fall in love with Lori Petty, you know, and it's like,
oh man, criminally underused Lori Petty.
Criminally underused.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're just like, you know, like kind of a theme throughout like our favorite movies is like how humanizing every character is. Even the antagonists have fully developed characters, you know, that you can at least relate to or sympathize with in some way, you know, while still recognizing that, you know, their actions are bad, you know. But yeah, like that's part of it, you know. It's this tension, you know. There's a real love between Keanu and Lori, and then there's also a real love between Keanu and Patrick Swayze. Yeah, you know, they are in a different way. They are soulmates, and it's such a that's the crux of it. You know, that's what makes that movie work so well, is that like you don't want either of them to lose. You know, you don't want Johnny to catch Bodhi, but you also don't want Bodhi to really get away. You know, like yeah, it's complicated. The action is so clean and precise in a way that like a lot of other action movies, both of the time and since, just haven't been. You know, yeah, like Bigelow really has an eye for how to film and frame shots so that you, even if it is a frantic moment, you understand like the position of a gun. And you can see like, oh, because we had that shot we saw this from the last shot. Now that it's a little more frantic, I already know where the barrel of that gun is pointing. I know who it's going to hit, you know,
it's pointing to the sky, Sam, and I'm yelling.
And I'm yelling, ah! Man, there's a reason why that movie was, you know, it wasn't spoofed. It was homaged in Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz, yeah.
You know, because it's perfect. It's whole different list, but it's in the top 10 of best action movies ever made.
Yeah, I think so too.
100%.
So, and I think it's just also like in the top 10 like guy movies of all time. You know, because it really is seen as a guy movie, and it's all about this brotherhood and this found family between, it's mostly just Johnny and Bodhi. The other guys are kind of just there.
But
yeah, man, like and I love it how like they challenge each other, but there's also this love there. And then so like it really hits in the climax when they actually have to fight. And it's like, oh man, dude. And you know, only one of them's walking away. Like no matter what happens, like these aren't the guys who are going to back down from that. And again, that's something that they just fundamentally got wrong in the movie. You know, they fought in the remake. They fought like super quick, which I guess that's a very dude thing. But like the climax was just very empty and CGI heavy. Like yeah. So man, Point Break, hell yeah, Utah, give me 2.
He wants 2 meatball subs, 2 like foot-long meatloaf subs.
Hey man,
at like 11 in the morning.
Hey man, he's a cop sitting in a hot car. I'm not asking questions.
I don't want. If I'm a cop sitting in a hot car, I don't want 2 giant meatball subs at 11 in the morning, and I definitely don't want to share a car with anybody after that.
And meanwhile, Johnny's ordering tuna on wheat.
Yeah,
which is the healthier option, but I also know because that's what Brian orders in Fast and Furious.
He's like,
you've been coming around here a lot. I like the tuna here. Bullshit. No one likes the tuna here. I love that line so much.
Oh god.
So guys, that's number 10s through 6 on our top 10 list. I can't wait to get into our top 5 next week. Sam's already mentioned one of my top 5s. We're gonna have to double down.
And so has Matt.
Oh,
Matt's already mentioned one of my top 5.
So has he. Also, I was realizing that I brought up Mask of Phantasm, Starship Troopers as my honorable mention. But I did realize there was more because I actually did remove more than one from my initial list. So I'll talk a little bit about that next week. So
I look forward to it.
Guys, thanks for joining us. This is a long episode. And next week's probably going to be long as well. We like to talk.
If you couldn't tell.
Yeah, but if you would like to talk as well with us, hit us up on the socials. I'm on Twitter at _Matt Jimenez and on Instagram at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. And that movie's not on my list.
Oh yeah.
It would be up there. It might be in my top 20.
Okay.
Monty Python, Holy Grail.
Yeah. Interesting.
Man, if we did a top 20, that would be wild.
All right, for one of the anniversaries, we're just gonna do top 100.
Oh, jeez.
But we won't be able to talk about any of it. It's all right, 100.
We'll just start listing.
This. Okay, 90. Wait, that's 90? What's above that? How can you put that in? Yeah. It's gonna be bad. That's maybe if we get on Patreon, that'll be a Patreon exclusive.
Right? Oh,
we'll just break it down into 10s.
Now I'm thinking about it. I was like, oh wow. What movies mean the most to me?
Gotta rank them. What 100 movies will you take with you on a desert island? And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Reel. That's REEL Texas Weirdo.
Yep. So, guys, love y'all. Until next time, feed the beef.
Oh no! No.